Here we will see stored procedure in SQL Server. A stored procedure is a group of one or more pre-compiled SQL statements into a logical unit. It is a subroutine or subprogram that has been created and stored in the database as named object. Each procedure in SQL Server always contain a name, parameter list and transact SQL statements. We can invoke the procedures by using triggers, other procedures and applications such as Java, Python, PHP, etc. It can support almost all relational database systems. SQL Server builds an execution plan when the stored procedure is called the first time and stores them in a cache memory. The plan is reused by the SQL Server in subsequent executions of the stored procedure, which allows it to run quickly and efficiently. There are different options when you should use the SQL Server stored procedures. First is enhanced security. When you want to allow controlled access to the database operations and reduces the risk of SQL injection attacks. Then modularized code. You can use the stored procedure to break down the complex SQL logic into manageable, reusable modules for improved maintainability. Improve performance. SQL Server stored procedures are used to reduce the overhead of repeatability, sending SQL statements to the database. Automate task. For automating routine or complex database operations and data processing tasks, and implement business logic. SQL Server stored procedures are used to encapsulate business rules and process directly in the database. Features of stored procedures are: stored procedures are reusable. Multiple users in multiple applications can use the same stored procedure. As stored procedures resides in the database, it reduces network traffic. Applications have to make a procedure call to the database and it communicates back to the user. Database objects are encapsulated within a stored procedure and this acts as a security mechanism by restricting access to the database objects. It reduces development cost. It can easily modified and increase readability. It improves performance. When a stored procedure is executed for the first time, the database processor creates an execution plan which is reused every time the stored procedure is executed. Drawbacks of stored procedures are: increase the overhead. Stored procedures can consume more server resources than simple SQL statements, particularly when they are used frequently or for complex operations. Limited portability. Stored procedures are often specific to a particular database management system, which means they may not be easily portable to other DBMS. Debugging challenges. Debugging stored procedures can be more challenging than debugging simple SQL statements, particularly when there are multiple layers of code involved. And security risk. If stored procedures are not written correctly, they can pose a security risk, particularly if they are used to access sensitive data or to perform actions that could compromise the integrity of the database. Difference between user-defined functions and stored procedures are: stored procedures can return 0 or single or multiple values. Functions can return one value which is mandatory. Stored procedures can use transactions or can fire triggers. We can't use transactions or fire triggers in functions. Stored procedures can have input-output parameters. User-defined functions can have only input parameters. We can call function in stored procedures, but we can't call stored procedure in function. DML and DDL operations can be performed in stored procedures. DML and DDL operations can't be performed in functions. We can only use select statement and insert statement to insert a row in a variable type. We can use exception handling using try-catch block in stored procedure. We can't use try-catch block in function. Stored procedures can't be used in select, where and in having clause. Functions can be used in select, where and in having clause. Temporary tables can be created or accessed in stored procedures. Temporary tables can't be created or accessed in function.